Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone, no matter where you are in the world. Welcome to the Mansa Talks podcast by Kunta Content and nacheki. We are a podcast focused on African excellence, talking to great Africans about great things that they're doing and building. Today, we have Oladele Olafunyi. I hope I've done that justice.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay.
Awesome. CEO of Kunda Kids, he'll tell us a bit about what he's building to improve African child literacy and African self-identity. Olafuyi, take it away. Tell us a bit about yourself and what you do.
Thank you very much, Dean. Thanks for having me. Really excited to be here. You're doing really amazing work, and super excited to see what Kunta Content is doing, and expecting you to go all the way to the moon as you reach Africans all over the globe. My name is Dele, Oladele Olafuyi, but everybody calls me Dele. If you call me Oladele, I'll think I'm in trouble. Like, you really need my attention. Like Oladele, hey, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Everybody calls me Dele. I'm co-founder and CEO of Kunda Kids. At Kunda Kids, we tell, we're storytellers, and we focus on telling African stories. We do this through books, through music, through animations, games, and we create exciting experiences inspired by African history, African culture for kids all over the globe. So that's what I do, right now, and that's what Kunda Kids is about in a nutshell.
Okay, awesome. Tell us a bit about how you got here. I know you did a really interesting MBA. I'm sure there are a few companies that are unhappy that Dele is doing his own thing versus working for them. So a bit about your history and eventually, of course, how you landed in making books and telling African stories.
Excellent. So, interesting story. So I grew up in Nigeria, and I'd worked in Nigeria for all my career, except when I went out on international assignments. But I got to a point in my career, and I was like, you know what, I want to do something different. I want to move to the UK, and I felt the best way to move to the UK and also get a better job is do an MBA. So I listed top schools in the UK. I was like, it has to be Oxford, Cambridge, or London Business School, and I'm going to do an MBA in one of those. So got into Cambridge, super excited about that. Did my MBA in Cambridge. But what I didn't expect is me doing the MBA will make me think, will make me become an entrepreneur, basically. And the 1 year MBA was a journey for me. Cambridge MBA, really fantastic. It's an MBA that focuses a lot on entrepreneurship and helps you bring whatever ideas you have to life. Now, I didn't have all these ideas, all this concept during then, but what the MBA did was to equip me with skills I needed to be an entrepreneur. So after that, I started working in Fintech. I was working with the money transfer company World Remit. I was managing marketing for Africa. And it was during that process that we started Kunda Kids. And we realized, you know what, there's a huge opportunity here. Let's start doing it. So I left World Remit and started working full-time Kunda Kids to build an amazing future for kids all over the globe. So that's like the little story, how my MBA kind of made me pivot into the space. Now, from fintech into content, creation and edtech. And that's my little story.
Oh wow! So fintech bro comes to content.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I also am quite active in fintech. It's rare to see someone leave a large fintech and not do their own fintech.
Yes, I know. And for me, I saw the need, and as a parent myself, I felt it's really important I do something to change the next generation, and because the mission is so huge, the The need is there. We want to reach, over 500 million kids. To me, it was kind of like, yeah, let's build this ed tech platform. Let's build Kunda Kids. Yeah, so that was that.
Yeah, I love that you've mentioned EdTech. So you're not too far off. You're just nearby, hands level. Yeah, that's awesome. And it's a different thing to have the idea or the structure of potentially what a business might be. It's a different thing to jump in and actually commit and actually start and hire a team and bring on board the financing and decide you're going to commit X amount of time to a project. What was that change like for you from being part of an institution to starting out more or less completely on your own with your wife and figuring out the way forward?
Yes. So I grew up, kind of like your parties get a good job. You need to always have a good job, and that was what because that's what the generation of our parents did,
Yeah.
and that was also how they brought us up. Like you need to just get a good job. When I was going to do my MBA, my mom was in support, but there were other family members that were like, "Don't leave your job to go to school. Don't leave," because that's what their generation understands now. But we are a totally different generation, and for me, it's about when opportunity meets preparedness. Then there's room to build something great, and I felt we were ready. Louisa and I were tried some business ventures in the past. They didn't fail, but we just didn't have capacity to grow them because we were still in full-time jobs and all of that.
Yeah.
So we kind of packed them aside. But at this point, we felt, you know what, we're actually ready to take that bold step. And that was what led me to start doing Kunda Kids full time. And yeah, we are. We launched Kunda Kids December of 2020. We're just 15 months into the company now, but people think we've been around for so long. We're just 15 months old, and we're already trying to make some really important, have some really important impact in the industry. So that's kind of how I see that.
Journey into. Yeah, and for in a nutshell, Kunda Kids tells African stories, and you do this primarily through printed books. Now you already have thought processes around ebooks, around music, around games. What does Kunda Kids look like right now, and what might it look like in about, let's say, a year or two?
Oh wow, a year or two, whoa, really exciting. But when we started Kunda Kids, we always knew that we want to tell African stories through books, through music, through animations and games. And that's the core of what we're doing, and that's what our roadmap looks like. So far, we've published books, 8 books, 9 books so far, actually. There are more books in the pipeline, and we'll keep on publishing more and more stories. And in but we know to scale globally, it's difficult to take hard copy books, all over the globe.
Yeah.
It's such a difficult thing, different language. But when you digitize it or you have a mobile app that is on the Google Play Store, iOS, available all over the world, it's at at everybody's fingertip. And that's what we've done at Kunda Kids. We've built our app. I don't know when you're watching this, but if you're watching, chances are when you're watching this, it's probably live on the Google Play Store and probably live on iOS. So download the app and enjoy a lot of amazing content. And that's why we're an EdTech, because we've created this platform to push our content. Now, in 1 to 2 years from now, where Kunda Kids will be, we want millions of people to be using the Kunda Kids app, for their daily bedtime story with their kids and all. And that's why we're racing to make sure we have at least 365 stories.
Oh,
Whenever
wow.
it's a leap year, then
Yeah.
you can repeat one story. We're racing to have 365 stories on the app, and we're hoping to get there before the end of next year. such that every single day of the year you could read a different story inspired by African history, African culture to
Yeah.
your kids. Additionally, we're beginning to play in the animation space. And, this time next year, definitely our first animation series will be out on TV, and all of that. And in 2 years' time, I would expect, Kunda Kids, for millions and millions, tens of millions of kids all over, hundreds of millions if possible, all over
Yeah.
the globe to be watching Kunda Kids animations and reading Kunda Kids books and all of that. And that's where we want to play in at Kunda Kids.
Yeah. Awesome. Fantastic. And I think what's so important about what you're doing is just the amount of content we have out in the world that is not African, that's consumed by Africans, especially in these formative years, especially when you're under 18, under 12, under 5. So I know you mentioned that giving that education to kids, that information to kids is the most important part. How do you see that playing out differently, let's say, for children who read your books versus us who read mostly Western stories and information?
Yes, really, really important question you just brought up. So I was in Nairobi recently, and it was World Book Day. We went to some schools, went to bookstores. But unfortunately, you go into bookstores in Nairobi today, you hardly find books like this, books that represent African kids, books written by Africans, to tell African stories. They're very few. And there are a lot of reasons why, because it's really difficult to put out a really good book. It's
Yes.
expensive, and putting such investment into producing a book is something, unfortunately, a lot of creatives can't afford to do, which is why we at Kunda Kids are working with a lot of creatives and helping them to get their stories out there. So that's one. Now, these stories are very important because kids need to see themselves in books.
Yeah.
A child growing up believes all the best books don't have black faces. Subconsciously they grow up with that mindset that I also probably am not among the best out there, right? And they're like the cool kids, you know, the ones that are not black, the cool kids, the pretty ladies are the blonde you ones and all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it subconsciously affects the mindset, and that's what is affecting a lot of us. A lot of people in our generation today, there's something I often say: a lot of us need to really unlearn a lot of things because we grew up thinking everything West is best,
Yeah.
and it's actually not the case because we're all human, and every part of the world has its own beauty in its own way. We can't say one part of the world is more beautiful than another because we as human beings, it's the differences from all over the planet, that makes the human race so amazing. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, one part of the continent of the planet has been really neglected. Our stories have not been taken global, and unfortunately, our own kids are not even reading our stories. And this has a lot of impact on our kids, and other kids all over the world. Because when children's literature doesn't show diversity, this breeds ignorance in the minds of kids. They see what they read as truth. And this is what breeds prejudice, racism in the future. And these are the things that we're trying to correct at Kunda Kids. We want a world where all the kids accept, kids accept each other. Kids are so innocent, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, because of that innocence, whatever you feed them with is what they grow up believing.
Yeah.
And if you feed a child believing, oh yeah, this race is superior to this race, they'll grow up believing that. If you
Yeah.
feed a child with information to say all human beings are equal, they will grow up believing that. And that's why we at Kunda Kids, we're trying to produce a lot of good stories, good content to help all kids feel represented.
Okay, awesome. Um, you did, I think, 4 books in less than a year. I am so curious how you survived that process, how you released those books, how you wrote them and published them, and still maintained your sanity. So please tell us about making 4 books in such a short amount of time and trying to lead a creative team.
Oh wow, yeah. Um, One thing I've always been able to do is lead teams. I've always been able to manage processes and all. And when we started Kunda Kids, we wanted to release, we released 4 books at the same time when we first launched. And it's something that took a lot of people by shock. Like, how do you release 4 books at the same time? Like,
Yeah.
how do you do this? And it wasn't like we did low quality books. We printed them well, they were well developed. And but it was just putting in the right processes and finding the right talent to help us get this done. And the company is 15 months old. In those 15 months, we've released 9 different children's books. And we are even planning to scale and release a lot more because diversifying children's literature, solving this lack of diversity problem is really at the heart of everything we're doing. So it was a very difficult process, but we did it, and it's something that we're now looking to scale to start publishing even more. Wait till you see what's coming. What's coming to the kids. So many exciting things are in the pipeline.
Okay, awesome. I think it's a different game. It's a different challenge when you're publishing under a large publisher versus doing it yourself. What are some of the challenges you experienced? But at the same time, what are some of the opportunities as a solo self publisher?
Yeah, I'll start to the opportunities. Um, there are a lot of opportunities because the opportunities you have the license to be creative. And there was something that we did with our books that was phenomenal. When you look at these books, this series is called Africa's Little Kings and Queens. There's
Mhm.
7 kings and queens there that we've written about from all over Africa. We decided to try something, that was totally different from what happens in books. And it was such a huge success. We created a world that it's only kids. So when you look at the illustrations in these stories, you wouldn't see
Yeah,
grandparents, you wouldn't see uncles, aunties. They're just they're only kids just doing everything. They're only kids,
yeah,
all these books. And it was fascinating because we had that creative freedom because we're not bound to any big publisher. We did our research, and our research told us that we needed to do some things that were quite different. And that's what really sets Kunda Kids apart because we don't try to just follow what the industry dictates. We try to set the pace in several areas. And with
yeah.
every book that we do, um, it's innovative. So this book, Keke and the Cake Thief, was the first that we published that was not in the Africa's Little Kings and Queens. And of course, they're adults here, they're parents, and the likes. But the approach we took for those 4, yeah, was really exciting. So there's creative freedom, and all of that. But when you have the challenges, it's difficult publishing books. It's difficult distributing books. You get in touch with some bookstores and they're like, oh yeah, we don't work with independent publishers. So I'll tell you one of the things that we experienced. I wouldn't mention their name, just but there's a publication in the UK. They're like an authority when it comes to publication, when it comes to reviewing books and all.
Yeah.
When we launched Kunda Kids, they contacted us. They were like, we love this. This is amazing. This is really good. And they were like, we'd like to do a full feature on you guys and all of that. And we're excited because that was getting good recognition
Yeah.
from, one of the industry leaders.
Yeah.
And guess what happened next? They were like, oh, yeah, which publishing house did you publish it? And we're like, no, 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 we are starting our own publishing house. And they were like, oh, we're sorry, we can't feature
Oh
you.
wow.
That you need to be coming from a big publishing house, and these are some of the challenges. The bookstores that you speak with, and they're like, "Oh yeah, well, sorry, we'd only get from the big publishers." And these are some of the things, because publishing is really difficult. There's a distributor that we're currently speaking with in Canada, and he said before he could distribute in Canada, it was like a battle because the industry refused to allow him come in. Because so like, and that's why you see there's lack of diversity in children's book,
Yeah.
because the people that really control the industry. But we know, as long as you can reach the customers directly, right, nobody can stop you.
Yeah.
And that's why Amazon is a pretty good channel, because even though Amazon takes a huge margin from every book sale, but you can still reach people directly without having to always rely on the on the gatekeepers. So
Yeah.
every now and then I say shout out to the gatekeepers, because yeah, they're doing a good job keeping the gate. But we know, as long as you can reach the people directly. So there are a lot of challenges there. There's challenges when it comes to funding too. There's challenges when it comes to reaching people, finding channels to marketing cost money and all of that. There's quite a lot of challenges. But we know, despite these challenges, we'll keep on building until we get to our goals at Kunda Kids.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting that you still have gatekeepers in industries that have been so disrupted. You have Amazon that has huge market share, and you'll still find smaller publishers, smaller distributors are still holding really tightly onto all the thought processes and all the systems. And I think at the same time, it gives creators like you, publishers like you, and platforms by extension like Amazon, the ability to reach more people. Because if you go to a bookshop, like let's say once every 2 weeks, it's very likely that the books are going to be the same. It's very likely you won't find anything new or interesting that you've seen.
Yeah.
Versus the same thought process on Amazon, for example, every single day you might find 500 completely new books that you've never seen before anywhere else. So yes, there's definitely the ability to tell really unique stories on digital platforms, which is why I
Yeah.
was so excited to see you launch a shop that people can purchase on. How does that work? Where can people buy from? And how has the experience building that been like?
Yes, so a lot of our books we push out primarily through our website and Amazon. Those are our main channels. But we're currently working on building relationships, with key distributors all over the globe, in Nigeria, in Kenya, in Canada, and the US. Some of the key markets. But if you need any Kunda Kids book, just go to our website, www.kundakids.com. That's your sure way to get it. We ship worldwide. And we're on Amazon. If you're in Kenya, Nigeria, Uganda, Ghana, there's some, and South Africa, there's some bookstores that do carry our books in those locations. So you can easily get them in those places.
Okay, awesome. Now to dive into talking about the characters and the stories you tell, there's a lot of familiarity with the characters. Shaka Zulu, Mansa Musa, these are characters and heroes that your average African might be quite familiar with. But how you tell the story is very different. There's little mention of war, little mention of violence. That's a decision of purpose. Why did you decide to go that way?
Yes, so interesting. So one of the things that we did when we were starting Kunda Kids is we wanted to tell African stories. We wanted to introduce kids to great people in African history, the likes of Mansa, Musa, and all. And we did some research. We tested our illustration direction. We started writing. We tested our stories. And one thing that came out strong, which is our motto at Kunda Kids, is kids just want to have fun. And because of this, we looked at some of the stories in terms of should we just write a story like, oh yeah, there was this great king called Shaka Zulu. Shaka Zulu was so great. He fought so many battles. When you look at Shaka Zulu as a character, it's just always depicted as this brutish um, character without any human feelings and all of that. And our research told us this is not the content that kids will find most appropriate for their development.
Yeah.
Kids just want to have fun. So we went back and we ran another research, and we the outcome of the research was to settle the genre historical fiction. So we take these characters and we look at elements of their culture or of what they did in their lifetime, and we use it to write stories, to write fictional stories. Because our main goal is to introduce these characters to little kids and
Yeah.
let them know they come from greatness. We want kids to know there was a great person called Mansa Musa who is the richest man in history. And
Yeah.
you can also aspire to be that. Because you're black does not mean you need to settle for less. And at the same time, when you also look into things like African history, unfortunately, a lot of stories they end well. We want a lot of stories that will really empower kids, no matter their race, right, to aspire and also learn about Africa. So we started writing the stories. You have Mansa Musa builds a school. This is inspired by the life of Mansa Musa, who is, was the emperor of Mali. We know
Yeah.
Mansa Musa built a big university in ancient Mali, which was a center of learning globally.
Yeah.
And Mansa Musa was such an instrumental figure. And we wanted to take the story of Mansa Musa and let kids know, but in a different way. So, where did this Mansa Musa build a school? Now, there's King Galbri cooks the best jollof. Fantastic story. King Galbri is from Senegal. And we West Africans, we always fight over jollof rice. Like, we know Nigerians make the best jollof today, but but jollof rice does originate from Senegal. And
Yeah.
we took that inspiration to write, about food, and that's a really, really, really interesting story. You have Queen Moremi makes a promise about the Nigerian queen, and you have Shaka Zulu learns to dance. This is everybody's favorite story. Like over 70% of people that have seen Kunda Kids books love Shaka Zulu learns to dance. And I'm not surprised because it took so much time to write this story because we wanted to present Shaka Zulu in an interesting way. So we took inspiration from the Zulu culture. All the South Africans that I know personally, they love to dance, They love music. They're very, very, very into their music. They love to dance. So we took inspiration from like the Zulu warrior dance and all of that to write Chaka Zulu learns to dance. And it's a fantastic story. Now, one other thing I need to mention is each one of these stories has a soft skill it teaches. So Shaka Zulu learns to dance is about this great king who had everything, who could do everything, but unfortunately he didn't know how to dance. And because he's Zulu, dancing is important in the culture. So he went through a journey, and that journey was a kind of journey to um, discover, to build confidence. So it wasn't like he couldn't dance at all. He could dance, but because he was dancing without confidence, it made him look so strange. And the moment he gained his confidence, people were like, wow, you got moves. And this is a story parents actually read to their kids to tell them, you know what, just be confident. When you're in class and you know the answer to a question, raise your hand. And if you make a mistake, it's okay, right? The confidence is what matters the most because we know the more confident you are, the more successful you will be in life.
Yeah.
And every book has a soft skill. You see, Queen Ya saves the golden stool. It's a story about responsibility, and it goes on and on and on. So that's kind of how we approach writing at Kunda Kids.
Okay, awesome. It's interesting to think about how many stories do not end well in African history. there is barely happily ever after. There's barely, oh, and he went on to do great things and so on. It's always, and he was caught at this point, and one, two, three happened. And that's, I think, a really interesting point to clarify to our younger audience is that before you get to the end of this story, enjoy this beginning, enjoy this thing that this person did. Okay, a lot of your characters are able to, I think, connect across culture because there's not too much focus on the race and or type of people they are, and not too much also on the corner of the world. Um, at the same time, a lot of the characters have had to, a lot of the real world characters, the real world heroes, had to deal with a lot of significantly challenging problems for leaders. So, from violence, from war, colonialism, and so on. Do you think for different age audiences, maybe you are looking to tackle that? Maybe for a slightly older audience, closer to teenage, and so on, telling those type of stories.
Yeah, I'm excited you asked that because what we've done with these books are in a series called Africa's Little Kings and Queens. There's 7 of them, but we also have independent titles that are not about kings and queens, just fun stories like this, Keke and the Cake Thief. This is a fairy tale. You know, when you go into the story, you see these little fairies, you know, and all of that. You know, it's about, I'll show you a page, an illustration with it's a very beautiful book. You look at this page, you know, the fairies are having a meeting,
Yeah.
and, you know, I wouldn't give away the plot before you. But yeah, it's a very beautiful book, really
Yeah.
beautifully illustrated. I often like to show this magical garden, the albino giraffe, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really, and this is a story, you know, about fairies. People think fairies only exist in like Disney stories and all.
Yeah.
We have fairies in African stories, and people
Yeah.
don't know. And that's what Keke and the Cake Thief is doing. Now, in response to your question, what we want to do is we'll be writing stories for preteens. So, like, Shaka Zulu Learns to Dance is just to introduce children to Shaka Zulu. But in actual fact, we also want kids to learn history and learn the real story.
Yeah.
And because these books are for kids 3 to 8, what they need for their development is not Shaka Zulu was a brutal warrior, and you know that's not what they need. They need fun. They need to develop through fun. Now, what we'll be doing is we'll be writing chapter books. That's for kids between 8 to like 12, you know, preteens,
Yeah.
and those stories will mirror history a lot better. So you probably see us write like, you know, maybe Shaka Zulu, and it can be Shaka Zulu and maybe the British invasion or something. I don't know. But that would be more historically accurate. This
Yeah.
is Queen Moremi Makes a Promise. You see us write something like maybe Queen Moremi's adventure in XYZ kingdom, you know, something like, and that would be more historically accurate, because that's the kind of that's kind of how we'll make this content make even more sense. So like Mansa Musa builds a school. When we write for preteens, it might be Mansa Musa's pilgrimage to Mecca.
Yeah.
And we tell that historical account because kids of that age are ready for, you know, more content, and they're ready for deeper conversations, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so at that point you can introduce certain other difficult themes to them, you know, elaborate. You can tell them about slavery a lot more at that age, but you know, there's no point telling a 3-4 year old, you know, that, oh yeah, you know, it's they need content to help them develop,
Yeah.
and they need fun content. So we'll be developing a lot of stories, you know, for kids of older ages, and a lot of these stories we're also going to tell in our animations.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, awesome. You've, I think, on purpose, but I'm curious to get your thoughts. You've been able to get a good balance of both genders, male and female leaders, kings and queens, and so on. Super exciting to see that, and some of why you are so focused on doing that from the beginning and still going on now.
Yes. So one thing that we've deliberate about is a lot of people look at we Africans and they're like, oh yeah, so patriotic, culture and all of that.
Yeah,
But as a matter of fact, there were a lot of kingdoms that were ruled by queens
yeah,
in ancient Africa.
yeah,
You look at a lot of Senegalese tribes, it's a matriarchal society.
yeah,
Like the women are the ones that actually make the decisions, that the ones that run the society. And
yeah,
historically in Africa, we always revered women. We're not a society that looks down on women. That's a
yeah,
foreign concept. It's a concept
yeah.
that
That's
was
it.
imported to
Yeah,
Africa. Go through African history. You see queens like Queen Moremi, Queen Amina of Zazao. There's so many queens. Go to North Africa, the Queen Nefertiti's.
yeah. Cleopatra.
There's this, yeah, exactly. There's this famous Kenyan queen. Well, I can't always pronounce her name well, but it's so it's really important for us to make sure they're represented, and let's our kids, and everyone all over the world know
Yeah,
this,
yeah,
right? Patriarchy is not is not like inherently African. We have respect for our elders, but women, the likes of Queen Nzinga, they ruled uh they ruled their um their tribes. And there's so many of them, yeah, Santua,
yeah,
from all over Africa, all the countries,
yeah,
go to Zimbabwe, everywhere. And so that's why we make sure we have that balance. And also the stories that we write that are not about kings and queens, the protagonist, like Keke and the Cake Thief, it's a male lead character. But you have this beautiful book, Mawa and the Garden of Plenty. Mawa is a very fun little lady, little girl,
yeah,
and Mawa and the Garden of Plenty is an exciting story, that every child needs to have in their library. So we do make sure there's a balance, in terms of the lead characters in the stories.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, from Kenya, from East Africa, we have Mekatilili, who was a female
Yeah,
leader.
Makati Lily. Yeah.
Yeah, we had Wangoa Makeri. We had a couple of really interesting female leaders. And even up to today, they are still there. They still lead their communities, lead their tribes. And it's amazing to see, and for you to mention that the patriarchy is a very new phenomenon for most of Africa. It wasn't always maybe 100% equal, but women always had a lot of respect, always got a lot of respect, always had ability to get into leadership positions,
Yeah.
were always some of the primary breadwinners in their families. It's not a foreign concept to have equality in Africa.
Yeah, exactly. Because hundreds of years ago, women were, and it's something that everyone needs to understand today, right? Because all this patriarchy that we see, it's an important concept.
Yeah,
Hundreds of years ago, we were really ahead. And there's also one other thing that I do like to point out once in a while, and this is when we do talk about African history. It's a question everyone needs to always ask themselves: why is it that there's so much effort to make sure African history is not taught?
yeah,
And because there was a lot of greatness in African history,
yeah,
right? There was a lot of greatness. There were
yeah,
empires, you know, there were civilizations. You go to Zimbabwe, you see great Zimbabwe, and all these things, and which the foreigners have said, yeah, great Zimbabwe couldn't have been built by ancient Zimbabweans,
yeah,
just because it's about, and people have been put in jail, scholars have been put in jail
yeah,
because they were like, great Zimbabwe was built by the ancient Zimbabweans, and they,
yeah,
just to push the narrative, and to be able to defend colonialization that we brought you technology, whereas civilization started from Africa. And our approach at Kunda Kids is we believe whatever has happened in the past is past, right?
Mhm.
And we are very forward looking. And the content that we teach, it's not to make people of today angry about what has happened, right? It's not that at all. It's just to know that you come from greatness. You're not defined by whatever constraints and limitations Black people are faced in today's world,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You can strive towards attaining greatness yourself again. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of the approach that we take.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. We can now finally talk about what you consider yourself. Is Kunda Kids a tech company? Is it a content creator? Is it a publisher? Is it all three?
Yes, that's the simple answer. We're an tech company,
Mhm.
right? That focuses on creating content and really getting the content out through digital channels. So we publish ebooks, we publish books through our digital channels, and also animations. Our animations are going to be going out through those channels. But we know it's not everybody that can go digital, number one, which is why
Yeah.
we still have the hard copy books. And two, um, there's an experience when you still read a physical book.
Yeah.
There's a kind of bonding experience between parents and kids, and we don't want to lose that. So we're going to hang on to the physical book parts for as long as
Exactly.
as long as we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we know the ad book part is not what's going to scale,
Mhm.
and that's why we've gone digital. We've digitized our content, and we're creating things that we can easily distribute through digital platforms.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Um, Finally, what's next? What's next for Kunda Kids, and what are you hoping that your books will be able to achieve, especially in the short term?
So for us, what's next? First, about the books, we really want to get our books into like schools, into the school system and all of that, so that kids in schools can start learning, you know. And fun through learning is one of our main mottos at Kunda Kids. So we want kids to learn through fun, through the fun stories we write and all of that. That's one.
Yeah.
Two is our mobile app. We're putting the Kunde Kids app out there for all, parents and kids all over the world to be able to enjoy really good African inspired content,
Yeah.
for their kids and all. And that's something that we want hundreds of thousands of people all over the globe to be able to enjoy.
Yeah.
Now, three is our animations. We've started working on our animations, and we're looking at storytelling as never been seen coming out of Africa, um, at a quality, that competes with a global audience.
Yeah.
And so watch out for Kunda Kids. That's so those are the things that we have in the short term that we're working on. Long term, there are a few other things in the pipeline, but they're still
Yeah.
a bit
Yeah.
far out. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to maybe add on to that, you've been able to, I think, do really well in stories from Africa of Africans. You've spoken about expanding to other regions around the world, North America, Caribbean, Europe, etc. Do you think, let's say, especially for the Caribbean and North America, do you think you're going to be able to tell stories of Africans who got there maybe as a result of slavery, but ended up as heroes, as leaders in their communities? Is there a thought process on that? What's the way forward for you?
Yeah, absolutely. When we talk about African stories, because we know we Black people, we've originated out of Africa, right? And, whether you're from the Caribbean or wherever, we'll still want you to identify with our stories. So in the In the future, you see us tell stories, coming out of the Caribbean and all of that, coming out of America, even Europe and all of that. There are stories that people don't know and need to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
The stories of African kings that ruled in Europe.
Yeah.
But we don't just want to stay by telling stories about the past, because it's not it's good, but there's a lot more that kids of today need to learn. So you're going to see us doing some Afrofuturistic themes and all of that in the coming months to years and all of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so there's a lot of exciting things we have in the pipeline at Kunda Kids. I can only tell you watch this space.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time, Oladele. I think it's been such an exciting look into what you do at Kunda Kids. I think people can go to your website, they can download your app, they can buy books, they can support you. We are excited to be part of this journey, and we can't wait to see what you do next. Thank you so much for your time. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dean. Thanks for having me. An amazing work that you're doing here. Really, really love what you're doing. Thank you so much. Keep it going.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for listening to Mansa Talks podcast by Kunta Content and Nacheki. You can access this podcast on the Nacheki YouTube channel and many other platforms. Thank you and have a good day.
Remember to leave your suggestions on the topics you would like us to cover in the comments below.